Racing cars speed around circuits worldwide, rousing the enthusiasm of millions of fans. Leads are sometimes measured by thousands of seconds. Technology, engine resistance and frames are highly exploited to favor speed and safety. But sometimes a slight delay during a pit stop can determine the final result. Refueling during the race requires perfect synchronization of the actions of the mechanics, which are often decisive when it comes to stepping onto the podium. Together with mechanics, electronics and aerodynamics, fuel dispensing systems have also advanced. This is how pit stops took place in the early 20th century. The refueling system developed. This is Alberto Ascari in the 50s. From the end of the 19th century to our day, the history of filling stations clearly shows the technological evolution of man. In Palazzolo Milanese, there is the Fisogni Service Station Museum, internationally the first in its kind, with more than 8,000 exhibits of industrial archaeology. The exhibits on show vary from primitive containers to self-service and are divided into categories and arranged in wide spaces, setting off the characteristics and beauty of each piece. The exhibition does not concern only petrol pumps, but also all the objects, fancy goods and gifts related to a service station. Petrol pumps, light globes, containers, advertising plates for roads and places, compressors and columns, fire extinguishers, implements, gadgets, toys and photographs and technical drawings which are kept in a special historical archive. On the walls of the museum and archive, you can see a vast collection of photographs and posters regarding oil products and their distribution. The museum is managed by its founder, Guido Fisogni, who for almost 40 years has been making new additions to his collection. Sometimes actual pieces of junk, which are restored by specialized staff and placed inside the museum. As we have said, Fisogni has collected everything concerning service stations, including containers, vessels and work implements, the styles and trademarks of each testifying for their age. The designers who followed the evolution of petrol pumps gave way to their imagination as far as form and functionality were concerned. Functionality gave way to an appealingly colourful design, which in time has come to represent the brand of fuel on offer. Each brand has chosen an advertising light globe that can be seen from a distance to symbolise their fuel dispensers. But let's meet the founder and keeper of the museum.
At the
beginning of the 60s, I started working at the maintenance and later at the construction of service stations. I had the idea of collecting something for every kind right from the start. A petrol pump, a road sign, a gadget, a work implement. They just had to have the trademark of a petrol company. All the items I found, I had restored by a technician who restored them, varnished them with their original colors, and made them work again. That's why I believe this collection is the only one of its kind worldwide. Also because of the number of items I have, which number almost 8,000. It wasn't easy at first tracking down the junk, because it was only junk at the time. But then, going around Italy and Europe and America, I got all this lot together. The wide rooms of the museum give a striking view into the past, guiding us through the technological and aesthetic development, which also represents the evolution of society. A wide area is kept for meetings, where we can see an extraordinary showcase table. It is difficult to follow the evolution of this implement through a short video recording, but it is, however, a pleasure to wander along an itinerary that takes us back almost a century. During early 20th century races, there were no service stations, and competitors had to provide for their own refueling. They sometimes had to turn to animal traction when there was no fuel. This kind of petrol pump only appeared along American roads around 1910. Together with the development of competition engines came mobile refueling systems. It is 1925, and this is the triumphant finish of Felice Nazzaro at 130 kilometers an hour. A rare picture of Enzo Ferrari driving an Alfa Romeo. Here is a collection of mobile petrol pumps from the early 1920s. During motorcycle races, it was often the competitor who had to see to his own refueling. Benito Mussolini himself did not disdain showing off on a motorbike. He had a real passion for engines. Here he is on an official visit to Fiat. This is the petrol pump used by Benito Mussolini in real fascist style. Those were the years when the Fiat Balilla took hold in Italy and became a part of history. Even petrol pumps were used to express the slogans of the time. The cost of fuel seems amazing to us. 1.9 lira a litre. The display goes on to show various models which slowly take us back to the far-gone days of industrial archaeology. Various kinds of cans, accessories and implements are lined along shelves here and there. It is interesting to see how complicated some of the petrol pumps were, and how much manual work was required from the attendant, and also the various ways in which the readings were taken for the amount of fuel delivered. Here we can find old-fashioned lubricating oil dispensers, real collector's items. The equipment and columns for dispensing compressed air are also on display. This petrol pump, which has been chosen as the symbol of the museum, is a perfect example of the first electric pump, which began operating in Italy in 1936. It was a double-purpose pump, supplying both petrol and fuel oil. The museum is a real showplace, seeing the careful way in which the various items have been put on display, with lines and colours shrewdly intermingled. The result is extremely pleasing to the eye. The observant visitor will soon notice the curious items which are a symbol of the period and its style. For example, the plaques and emblems which stood along the roads a good many years ago, together with the advertisements for some particular brand of petrol. The first petrol pumps had transparent meters, which made it possible to ascertain the quantity of fuel dispensed. Then there were numerical meters, which indicated quantity and cost. Modern car washing systems appeared alongside the petrol stations. Time went by, and in the 60s petrol pumps became squatter and more practical, though they still had their light globe. A good petrol station was never without its firefighting equipment, such as this one, set on a truck. And this is the smallest existing petrol pump. Each kind of pump had its own measuring device for dispensing fuel. There were also lamps and stoves with the trademark of petrol companies, which no longer exist in Italy. Guido Fisogni opens his museum free of charge to all interested visitors. The most assiduous are university architecture and engineering students. The floor of the car wash is made from the old manhole covers of fuel tanks belonging to some of the most important petrol companies which no longer operate in Italy. The museum has a spectacular collection of road signs and place name plaques, sponsored by petrol companies.